Welcome, everyone, to the Comedy.Law podcast, episode 8, featuring Nick Power and Charlie. Today, we're going to talk about going viral on LinkedIn, and we're going to talk about 12 angry men. They have nothing to do with each other.
Comedy Law, yeah, we're here to play. Max Sherrill, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy Law today.
All right, so Nick, Nick, tell us a little bit about what it's like to be on have your 15 minutes of fame. What's that kind of like? How have you been responding to that so far?
Overwhelmingly, it's been positive. A little weird, to be honest. Like I was on LinkedIn doing things for 2 years-ish before that happened, and had like a handful of things that were, posts that went viral. But this was totally different. It was like a 2-week run of just like being talked about and being in the feed, and I was not ready for it. So definitely was kind of shocked and felt like I was losing my mind for a little bit. But yeah, overall it's been really cool. I've met a lot of really good people and had a lot of really good conversations, and I feel like I've like gained a lot of confidence in kind of like writing and finding my voice too. So that's been good.
Yeah, you seem to be much more confident. You're kind of pumping out more content. You've kind of found your voice, so you're just rolling with it now, right?
Trying to. I mean, I think, there's always an element of like overthinking or like second guessing or, and I try to push past that and just get through. Like, I feel like I've set up a system for myself now where like if I spend more than 5 or 10 minutes on something, I'll throw it away because I'm just like this. If I'm pushing this too hard, it's not going to come together. So the stuff that comes out easier, I just try to get out and move on from there.
So you write your content while your family's sleeping, right? Is that what you kind of do sometimes? You go off there and kind of have like a little writing spree on even on like pen and paper, or what's your style on that?
So really the content is like written during the moment of, and I try to spend like 5 or 10 minutes on it, no more than that.
Mhm.
And then the nighttime stuff is like answering comments and DMs and stuff like that, because that I've found to take like 90% of my actual time. Like the content itself is like, I'm just like, okay, here's the idea behind the joke. If I can't get it to shape up in 5 or 10 minutes, I'll throw it away and move on to something else or come back to it later and try that. But when I'm answering comments, I'm trying to get beyond just like, cool, thanks, like just, 1 or 2 word answers, and actually try and like have conversations where I can. So that's the most time consuming part I've found. And that's what I'm doing at night. I got a baby that doesn't sleep well. So a lot of times I'll be sitting in his room at 2 a.m. He's on my lap sleeping, and I'm on my phone answering comments if I can do that there.
So
I need to understand better, Nick. What is going on? What happened there, and how is LinkedIn a big part of it?
When you say what happened there, you mean like kind of just gaining more like visibility?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been in marketing for 15 years or more at this point, and so social media has always been kind of like something I've played with and had some good experience with. But LinkedIn, I think personally, has been a place where like I've always just kind of felt like there's a good community there of, it's just a higher bar, I think, of like content and behavior than like an Instagram or a Facebook or something like that. So I've always been kind of writing on there for the last 2 years, mainly like marketing stuff. And then I think what I just started to realize was that like there's just a million people writing about that. And so it was kind of like, what am I adding to the conversation? And so then I kind of just zoomed out and was like, man, there's like a ton of crazy stuff going on in the world. Like I should just say those things. And so I started to kind of let that stuff out more. And it really became more about like self-actualization than about like building a marketing career out of that content, if that makes sense.
So, Nick, I just had a quick question because I see under your name it says the Noun Project. So,
Yeah.
can you just quickly talk about what that is?
Yeah. So I've been at the Noun Project for about a year, and it's the world's most extensive and diverse collection of icons and photos. So designers and creative people and marketers come to us for icons and photography for their marketing stuff and design work. Um, Great spot to get, you know, authentic images of people and things and that kind of stuff. So really good team, and I think we've been around for about 15 years. But I've been really enjoying, leading marketing over there.
Okay.
That's all they got are nouns. They don't got any verbs or adjectives. So don't look. Don't ask for about those.
We gotta update the name, huh?
So
Speaking
do you,
of,
do you have an? Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
it's a bit laggy for me. I apologize. Speaking of icons, do you think skeuomorphism is going to go back? Are we going to throw off the shackles of 15 years of flat design only?
Not qualified to speak on that. I think you know where we land is kind of just like, let's find really good content, put it out. So that's what kind of our goal is. But I think you know we'll see where it goes. I'm really curious to see kind of like how people respond to like AI becoming such a big part of the design world and just visual stuff. And like I think honestly, my view is that we're going to see people kind of shift back to human content more. Like I think it's having a moment right now where AI is like just everywhere all the time, and I think there's it's going to be around to stay. But I think it's like a lot of people are going to get fatigued, just kind of you know sick of it, and move back to like human content.
So, Nick, I think comedy brings clicks, and then the reality of who you are and what you're doing, that brings business, right? I think that's kind of the strategy that that overarching strategy that you've got on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, and like so I'll say this. Like I said, I was doing marketing content on LinkedIn for, a year and a half or 2 years before this. And like I had some people who followed me and some people who engaged with me and stuff, but it never really felt like it was like clicking with people. And I think what I've realized is that, um, especially with where things are in the world right now, like politically and just like it's very chaotic. And so I think kind of this level of just bringing like the real world into the content has helped me just show that I'm like a person and not like a corporate avatar, if that makes sense. And so
Mm.
now like all of a sudden like um people are like, oh, like what are you doing, da-da-da. And then they're like, well, who do you work for? It's like because they want to know like how I'm kind of getting away with it, or like what kind of like is the underlying goal there. And like we're not like sitting in a corporate strategy meeting like, oh, like this is what we should do on LinkedIn. Like that's not really what it's about. Like I kind of just went and did this and was like, oh, it's okay. But I think what I will say is that I've never had more attention on like the place of where I work, like in my life. And so whether it's just like a flood of DMs or people like commenting like, hey, like I found Noun Project because of you, or I knew about Noun Project, but then I saw you standing out in front of the brand and I was like really excited to see that. um it's been a really positive like experience of just like people kind of jumping there on their own versus me kind of like trying to shove it into my content constantly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that doesn't work because you don't get the views. If you just talk about, noun project, noun project, noun project, the views don't come in, right?
Yeah, and I think like just being more relatable as a human being is like really where I'm at right now. Like to me, like it's important that like I'm on the marketing side of things, so I want to grow the brand for sure. But I think it would be dishonest of me to say that like this is entirely about a corporate agenda or anything like that. Like for me, it's a lot of it is about like trying to figure out who I am in a public format, and like learning and unlearning things that I've had in my head for a long time, and just kind of try like I said, finding my voice, which I know it sounds very eat, pray, love, but like that's where I'm at like in my life. And so I don't know. I think I've always been like a quieter person, and so kind of just using writing as a vehicle to kind of like get those thoughts out there and build that confidence, like has been really helpful for me, as a person too. So I'm thrilled that people are excited, like interested in where I work, and they're finding that, and like it's useful to people. But I'm not here to like hard sell anybody that doesn't need what we offer, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So I guess my question is, the ability to use the social media platform for marketing, but we talked about views and you've talked about comedy a bit. I guess what I'm looking for is, hey, are you getting known and getting business through the exposure? It sounds like this is a vehicle, just like a seminar might be. When you speak at a seminar about items, people want to know who is Nick and what is the Noun Project, and um, you're using different means to get there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think, kind of zooming out a little bit, like I think the personal brand, like the idea of that, and I'm not a huge fan of that term to be totally honest, but just for, I'm going to use it because I think it kind of clicks with, what people expect when we talk about something like this. I think that more and more, especially on LinkedIn, that's like a very powerful way to sort of just drive awareness, like of where you're trying to grow the brand. And so I think in terms of sales and stuff, like, yeah, I've gotten like probably 6 or 8 DMs from people that are like, yeah, I bought because of you. Like I found your content and I bought because of you. And so for every DM I get like that, I assume that there's a handful of other people who probably do it as well. But like, again, mainly to me, it's like, okay, I'm hitting 200 to 300,000 impressions every 7 days right now. So like a ton of people are seeing the words Noun Project and like probably Googling it or going straight to the website or whatever. And so in terms of like the attribution piece of being like, oh yeah, I can prove that this is like, crushing it from a sales perspective, I can't do that. That's just like kind of a limitation of the marketing. But I know from the conversations I've been having and kind of seeing like, what I know as a marketer and seeing those impressions and things like that, like the brand's getting out there. And I know that that's partly because I'm leading with my kind of myself versus like, hey, everybody, look at this brand and look at the product. Like, I just don't think people want to be sold to that way anymore anyways. So, and like I said, I'm not like, if people want to support me, that's a great way to do it. But I'm not here to like first sell. I'm here to kind of like build, a voice and kind of find my way there.
So do you find humor in all of the jokes that you put, or do some of your jokes intend to be like to make your audience laugh that you don't necessarily laugh at?
um, can you say it differently? I'm not sure. I like.
Do you in all your and do you laugh at your own jokes essentially? Like I think that's important to me whenever I tell a joke is that I also personally think it's funny, right? But
Right.
or do you write jokes that that are just for your audience to laugh at? There's some comedians that write more towards their audience laughing and rather than themselves laughing.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be totally honest. I think I'm funny for LinkedIn, but I don't like, I don't hold a candle to an actual stand-up comedian or something like that. So I'm completely in touch with that. Like, and I think that, you have to remember that LinkedIn was just a very dry place for a very
It
long
is,
time.
yeah.
And so there's kind of a low bar there, to be totally honest. And I think it's not even necessarily that like they're funny. It's just that they're colorful and poignant. Like you know, they resonate. Like it's like, 10, like you're scrolling and it's 10 tips on B2B and it's, what my colonoscopy taught me about B2B or whatever. And then it's like a joke about late stage capitalism or health insurance. And people are like, what the hell? Like, so I think kind of like being the purple cow or like just, standing out a little bit with that stuff is part of it. And I think too, like just saying things that are not generally said in a corporate environment like that, where like, I'm like, yeah, like,
Well, do you get feedback from, say, LinkedIn that says, "Hey, you're going too far over there. Don't go over there"?
I haven't yet. Like, I would say the feedback I've gotten is that, I reaching a lot more people has, it's been eye opening for me because like it it makes me realize that like I have a lot more to think about when I put a message out there than I did before. Like, and it's really like humbling, to be honest, to use the LinkedIn word. It's humbling because like I'll say something and someone's like, "Hey, did you think about how this would be received by like this person?"
Right.
And I'm like,
So
"Oh,
do you post to like a group, or do you post to everyone? What do you do?
I usually just post straight to everybody." Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I'm thinking about like, my own experiences and sort of not projecting, but I guess trying to reflect what I think other people are feeling, So in the example of like talking about the political chaos, right? Like I write billionaire jokes a lot because I feel pretty strongly that like a lot of the systemic inequity that we feel is because of this wealth, like poorly distributed wealth, right? And so
Yeah,
like,
you're not writing about me when you write about billionaires, so we're good there.
yeah, but I mean, like that's the kind of, it's like, I think that um it's a joke, but there's a deeper level there, right? It's like it's and to me the value isn't just like making people laugh. Like, yeah, I want to make people laugh, and I want to like kind of spread joy and sort of sublimate those kind of intense thoughts. But it's also bringing awareness to stuff that is like, again, you're scrolling and you're just getting like this corporate, you know, post, like the feed is very corporate, I guess, and then you come across a billionaire joke and all of a sudden you're thinking about that inequity and stuff like that. So to me, that there's value in that. And yeah, I need to probably like figure out better ways to mobilize and things like that, but I think it's a start to kind of get people thinking about it more.
Yeah, you put a spotlight to a lot of different topics with your jokes. That's what I've noticed is you kind of, I know the billionaires is a big one. You do that, then you put spotlights on other different topics. It's kind of like what do you want to put a spotlight on today is kind of the question.
Yeah, and like big tech is another one. I think, that we let big tech get away with a lot, frankly. And so, you know, AI comes up a lot. I've made jokes about Google. I've made jokes, about Microsoft and things like that. So, um,
AI is going to come get you.
yeah, I know that they're scraping my jokes, like holding a grudge for sure. But yeah, and mental health is another one. Like I
I
think,
like that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
and I think it's something that people struggle to talk about in a way that feels like I've seen mental health posts that go up on LinkedIn and people are like afraid to touch them because it's so intense or like, and so to me
And we can't
again,
really talk about it sometimes. Like as lawyers, it's hard to talk about. Like it's almost like almost against the rules to talk about it.
for anybody, I mean, like, I manage people and I think it's frowned upon to be like, yeah, I'm having a terrible mental health, and I'm like not about my particular company at all. Like I feel like a ton of support. We have um unlimited like mental health and sick days and things like that. So, but I think in general, that's kind of what I'm trying to do is like normalize that stuff being seen on the feed and kind of like bring it with a little bit of tongue in cheek and a little bit of like, hey, like this can be a joke because it's not that weird or crazy. Like a lot of people have terrible mental health days or
Well,
months.
you could take like a really easy one, like substance abuse.
Yeah.
That's an easy issue.
Yeah, right. I mean, and like, so those are a lot of that stuff is coming from like when I write jokes, a lot of that stuff is coming from personal experience or from like the stuff that keeps me up at night, right? Like, and so, I think if I'm feeling that way, I know others must feel that way, and like especially when I get out of my own sort of just head, I can see that happening.
As the only non-lawyer here, I've worked in content marketing as well. What would you say sort of more prescriptively, to someone who, is feeling that the content of their feed is stale, or maybe they're just, trying to go solo and stand out? Do you think there's downside risks that someone should consider when really injecting a personal voice in a public way with your real name. The old internet, everything was pseudonyms, right? I wrote in college under a pen name. So is there anything that you think someone should really be aware, the perils or downfalls of increased visibility?
100%. Yeah. I mean, and that's been a real like learning experience for me. And I think jokes in general too, like there's a line where, it gets funnier and it gets funnier. And then all of a sudden it's not funny at all because you've crossed the line. And so I think for me, that's been a learning experience of like, be aware of, where that line is and kind of like, and I make jokes about that too. Like, I'm like, okay, like I want to post this, but I can't kind of thing. And so I think there's that, but I also think, if you look at some of the stuff, like the way that I write, for example, like lowercase and like it's all in kind of text message speak, like I think that generally speaking, I wouldn't recommend like my approach to someone who's looking for a job. Right? Like it doesn't,
that's exactly what I had in mind. Everything from the profile pictures and selfies and optimize your headline. I don't think people realize that LinkedIn has this recruiter function, right? So out of curiosity, I went and asked one of these AIs what it thought about me and my work and what it could glean from LinkedIn. It was actually incredible how much, if you tell personal stories, it can piece together a lot. So I think that is a good takeaway for our audience, is it's quite different being in-house freelance and a job seeker versus, maybe more established in your career or owning your own firm.
Or if you're retired, you can just post whatever you want.
If I'm retired, I surely hope that LinkedIn has 0% of my life. I'm shutting down all social
0%.
Well, a couple of points. The first thing, Charlie, LinkedIn is very difficult, stale, boring. So to inject humor and a different approach, I applaud that. But the second thing is whatever you post is out there. It's available. People, when they Google you or go on LinkedIn, which everyone does, and they want to say, "Hey, who is Sherelle? Where has Sherelle been? What has she done?" They're going to find that information on LinkedIn, and I suppose there's a way to capture, like you said, through AI or whatever, to write a avatar. Okay, who is Nick? What does Nick stand for? And that's a very interesting, shall we say, challenging or even scary area.
I don't think marketers are as scared as other professions. Would you weigh in on that, Nick? All of my feed is a lot of B2B people, and they're funny, they're very personal. And I've noticed other professions are very, this is what April taught me about taxes, whatever. So do you think it's a temperament thing that people who want to write a lot under their own names go into marketing and content?
It is, but I also think that like marketers can see the value of kind of taking that risk and, being able to break through those like sort of, I'll call them walls for lack of a better word, but I think it's really like, I think a really good example is like Duolingo. Like they have just this huge brand that they built from being like unhinged on social media. And so I think that, again, I wouldn't recommend that for somebody who's looking for a job in accounting or something like that, like necessarily. But at the same time, like, if I'm going to demonstrate my knowledge of connecting with people in marketing, like, I think I'm doing a good job of it right now, frankly. Like, and so I think it's like, yeah, like there's risks being taken and frankly, like I'm learning a lot. Like I'm making mistakes and stuff like that, but I'm listening and trying to learn from those very deeply. And so I think like that's another point of value that goes beyond like money to me, is just like when I put something out there and like people respond negatively to it, or like there's just feedback on it, I'm like, oh, like I didn't know that. But by the same token, like if I put something out that's like write an OnlyFans joke or something and it crushes it, then I'm like, oh, like that was a thing that people like resonated with because of X, Y, and Z or something. So
Do you have, Nick, people that you bounce comments off of or thoughts? Do you have like a personal board of directors and you say, don't go here, don't do that?
Uh,
Left
I
brain, right
don't.
brain.
I don't. I used to run my jokes by a guy named Dimitri, who was awesome dude. He's a good friend of mine that I
Dimitri
met on
Martin.
LinkedIn. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dimitri.
I was about to say that too.
Yeah, I love Dimitri. He's the best. And actually, I met him in person for the first time like a couple weeks ago. Um, awesome dude, doing great things. Like, definitely check him out. Um, and I used to run jokes by him, but I kind of felt like I was like taxing him, or like putting too much on him because they were getting more and more, you know, just I was trying to find my voice and I didn't want to kind of put that on him. But I think what I've come to realize is that it really is important for me to feel good about it. Like, because if I can't sort of figure out where that happy medium is, then like I'm in trouble either way. So um I try to put that on myself, and yeah, I'll put stuff out that I delete like 5 minutes later because I'm like, and not even really because it's bad, but just because I don't feel good about the way it's worded, or like it just doesn't feel right to me. Like, there was one joke I put out the other day that was just like, um, I don't know how else to say this, but when you leave the house without your phone, it feels like skinny dipping. And for whatever reason, like I
That's a
put it
good
out, and
one.
like 5 minutes later, I was like, that doesn't feel right to me, and I just deleted it. So like, I'm telling you that just as an example of like, some of it is like, is it just the word? I don't know what it is, but at the end of the day, if I don't feel good about it, I'm just going to take it down because I don't like it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's hard to do when you got all those Nick Power watchers that check within 10 seconds whether you've posted.
Do you want them to ring the bell, or are you like, please, no, do not have the bell rung?
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm flattered like that people are interested in what I have to say, and like I think again, like, to me, it's just about as much about listening as it is about talking. Like, and that's why my posts are really short, because I'm kind of more interested in like what people have to say about that topic or about that joke than like what I have to say. Like, I think the biggest like shift or pivot in my approach to content is like to stop talking at people and like being like, here's a bunch of advice you didn't ask for, and just be like, here's a thing that I'm thinking about. Are you thinking about that too?
Yeah.
Basically. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I am. Like, how did you know that? So
All right. Well, look like we're ending up on the first segment, and we're gonna dismiss Nick and Charlie. Thank you guys for
Thank
coming.
you for being here.
Thank you, guys.
That was
yeah,
really good.
Having
We
us.
learned a lot.
thank you.
What's
And
that,
Appreciate it.
Charlie,
Charlie?
I'm not an attorney.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Honorary.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. 12 Angry Men. Which of the which version did you watch, Sherelle? 57 or 97?
57. I figured you guys would go with the 57, so I just watched it.
She texted me early this morning and said, "Are we watching 57 or 97?" And I didn't text back until about 20 minutes ago.
It's fine, but I figured that's the one Keith would have picked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with
what a
Henry
great
Fonda.
movie. I mean, to watch a black and white movie from back in the day, that took a little bit of adjustment, but oh wow, what a great show.
Yeah, I liked it. And it's so funny. When I was younger, I hated watching black and white stuff because in my
Me
mind,
too.
I'm like, "Where's color?" You know.
Yeah.
And now I have a different appreciation for it.
What do you give it, Sherelle, on your honesty scale, 1 to 10?
So I was a little annoyed through the movie, but I would say like a 6.5.
6.5? Okay.
Yeah.
What were you annoyed at?
Well, first of all, the back and forth. And then I did feel like the one guy who initially dissented and he was like, "Oh, not guilty." I just felt like kind of like the guy who was angry, who basically was, fighting against him the whole movie, where it's like you're making up stories in your mind. You're just kind of like, "Oh, this could have happened," or "What about that?" Like you were just kind
You
of
believe the angry man.
yeah. I felt more like that would have been me.
Me too. I was like, this guy's guilty. And I was like, I was with the angry people I didn't really buy any of the not guilty stuff too much.
What kind of rating did you give it, Max?
8.9. What did you give it?
9.
Oh,
Wow.
I mean, I thought it was very powerful to have the 12 people in that jury room, um, and to go over their life experiences. And what we saw there was that, hey, nothing is going to escape that jury. There's 12 people looking at the witnesses. So, like with the glass marks,
yeah, that was
that
good.
was observed by one person, and then other people started to remember that. But that was so key.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just wonder if I was on the jury, would I have noticed that this lady didn't have her glasses on? I mean, I don't know. Maybe if she was squinting, but I just like I said, it just felt like he was just kind of they were all kind of just making up, not making up stuff, but just trying to find a reason. I guess creating a reasonable doubt. Where I'm not an attorney, but I feel like the attorney's job. Um, I think the defense attorney should have kind of poked holes in the defense, but I don't know. What do I know?
I think the whole point was that, hey, we have a system, we have the jury to determine who is, what is the truth. And it's such a huge issue. You're going to have advocates that are going to paint the story left or right, and the jury is supposed to determine, okay, what is true here. I think that's what the movie was about, was how do you determine that? How do you go about determining that?
about
That's a big
separating
deal.
fact from fancy, as the judge said.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so what was so strong for me about the movie was this is telling you that the justice system, in this case, a criminal case, but whether it's criminal or civil, you have decision makers who are the jury. And the jury, hey, they're people like us walking down the street that are pulled into this room. And we saw that. We saw all the different personalities and beliefs.
Hmm.
They look around and they all look the same, but when they start talking, they talk very differently. You have the immigrant, you have the blue collar worker, you have the people who know about the elevated train and the noise. I mean, there's a lot of diversity on that jury, even though it didn't look that way at first.
Yeah, and I wonder what makes them angry men. Is it the fact that they got pulled in, like you said?
I think that's it, right? I mean, the whole system is, hey, we get a notice in the mail. You are picked for jury duty. And the first thing that a lot of people think is, oh no, they're going to take me away from the ball game, or whatever, and ask me to use my time. And they don't see the value in it. And we saw that at the end of the movie when one of the jurors just said, okay, I'm going to switch
Yeah, he gave up. I
because
don't.
I want to be done.
You're not
Yeah,
supposed to do that. I don't think you're supposed to do that.
Well, that's what the immigrant told him is, hey, look, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to have a reason for saying guilty or not guilty.
right. Yeah, that part I did enjoy, because I could kind of see somebody getting agitated and just deciding to, oh, you know what, forget it. I'm tired of talking. Let's just make a decision. But yeah, the gentleman was right. You need to have a reason. Whether your reasoning is the same as mine, you still have to kind of say, hey, here's why I went this way. But I guess his mind was more so on getting out of there and getting to a game. Um, but the other part that I thought was really interesting was when the one gentleman kept saying, well, you know how these people are, you know how this, you know how
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So it was just kind of like, wow, your prejudice is showing, you really didn't think about the case and the possibility of his innocence. You had already decided based on his background that he
He's a
probably
bad
killed.
actor. Yeah. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
was.
right. The whole comment that everyone from the slums lies. And then the one juror said, "Hey, I grew up in the slums." And, you know, his personal experience came through, and you could kind of look at him and tell he's not a liar. Well, we're trying to deal with the stereotypes.
Right. Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
tell. Sherelle, was the defendant black?
I thought he was a young white kid. I'm not
Okay,
I
I
thought
thought
sure.
he
he
was
was
too. Then I
Hispanic.
was wondering why that guy was going on those rants of saying, like those people. Was he just talking about poor people then?
No, I think he was talking about Hispanic, poor
Oh,
Hispanic people.
oh, okay, yeah, because he didn't look black. I was just wondering if it was that racism that was coming out. It was a
There
Yeah.
different
was
type of racism.
racism, but it was a different
Yeah,
racism. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really. I only caught a glimpse of the kid from what I remember, and he just looked like a young white kid, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But either way, it was still prejudice. Like he still had his opinion based on where the kid grew up.
Yeah, whether it was poverty or racism because of his ethnic background, there was definitely a stereotype.
Yeah, it
So
could have been both because I know sometimes, typically, a certain group of people may end up living in a specific area. So, you know, it could have been both that he was of a certain cultural background and that he lived in this area.
Yeah, he might have been Irish.
So about 12 years ago, I taught law and leadership to these incoming ninth graders in Miami, and we had a mock trial, and some of them were in a mock jury room. So we put that in the open though, so that the parents could see it, and it was a lot kind of like 12 Angry Men. It was just like, they were just going around in circles. So we eventually moved them back to the back part of the stage, and then they finally came out with a verdict. But this is a rare look into sausage making. Like jury decision making is a lot like sausage making. You often don't want to know how it's made. It tastes good. The sausage will taste good, but you don't want to know how it's made.
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting too. The guy with the prejudice. I'm just wondering. I'm not exactly sure the term when the attorneys are questioning potential jurors. But in my mind, I would think maybe that person might not have been able to be
Yeah, like
on.
a bias strike. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like maybe if the attorney had asked. I mean, I'm probably thinking too hard about it, but
No, that
I
is
just
right. They could do a peremptory challenge.
right. Just because he was biased, they
Yeah.
should have been able to catch that.
Yeah, that's in Texas. It's called voir dire or voir dire,
For dire.
voir dire, and in French it's called voir dire. To tell the truth, but that's the whole point: is that in the jury room or in the questioning in advance, you're supposed to tell the truth, and you're supposed to put aside your personal beliefs and your prejudice and listen to the facts and listen to the evidence. It's really, really hard to do.
Have you guys ever sat on a jury before?
I've been called, I've never had the pleasure of serving.
I've also
Mhm.
been called but have not served. Have you?
I've been called but not served either. So, or called to serve.
It's
You know
because
what I meant.
you work in the law. They don't want somebody who works in the law. Like Henry Fonda could have made a good like second chair lawyer because he was doing a lot of like legal arguments. He was helping the defense side with their legal arguments. And that's often what you don't want in the jury room, but it worked out for the defense this time. So
Well, there
whether
were
that was
definitely some
happenstance or not.
things that wouldn't fly. He shouldn't have investigated, brought in the knife, the duplicate knife. There are things that we should put aside legally, but the whole idea, he wasn't helping prosecution or defense. He was trying to get to the truth,
Hmm.
and that's a really hard thing to do. But the whole point was you have 12 people, and we saw the evolution. on each issue as people talked about that issue, and the opportunity to observe or the opportunity to hear. Um, these were all very important factors when initially, and he could very well have been convicted based on the mountain of evidence, but each piece of evidence was examined eventually, not at the beginning, but eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
thought.
the original voters of guilty didn't want to even really examine the evidence. They'd already had enough from the courtroom.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm glad they kind of decided to talk it out, because whether or not they decided guilty or not guilty, you do need to take the time to kind of look at the evidence, talk about it, and then make an informed decision.
Yeah.
If a jury deliberates very quickly, would a judge kind of send them back and say, "Hey, that was too fast," or no?
No.
No, no, the judge doesn't do that. It's left up to the jury, and it kind of evolves. It's kind of, and if you got the 12-0 decision in the first 5 minutes, in theory, you're done, and the judge could accept, and the judge should accept that verdict, even if it's very quick. Now, I'm not advocating that any verdict should be quick. You should examine the evidence.
All right. Let's talk about what are we gonna do next week. I don't know. What Sherelle, is there anything that has been at the top of your list?
No legal movies. No.
Let's just do a Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, I'm not watching that. I'm not watching that.
These have been really great movies. Everyone we've seen, this one was really great. I mean, I went in not expecting too much from this, and then it was so powerful in so many ways. So
Yeah.
great choice.
I think it won some of the Academy Awards, but I could be mistaken.
No. I wonder if the remake was as good. I think I'm gonna watch that this weekend just to
How
compare
could
the
they
two.
have 12 Men in 1997? What the heck?
That's true. That was the other thing. There were 12 men. I mean, I would think if this is back to the jury selection, but if the kid was Hispanic, I would try to have a couple of Hispanics on there as well if I was his attorney. But
Yeah, and how about some women? Because they can show a little more compassion and empathy. I think that would be good.
Yeah, the whole issue was who was qualified to serve. And the belief was that a whole lot of groups were not able to serve. And there you go with the whole discrimination again.
Yeah.
yeah, but it was 1957, so
We'll give
things
them a
were
pass.
right. But there was a black guy in the 97 version that I saw.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So did you ever watch The Firm? I don't know. It's
I
a
was
Tom
thinking
Cruise
that
movie.
one. Yeah, I was actually thinking that.
I don't mind watching it. It
All
was
right.
on my list.
All right, The Firm it is. We'll watch The Firm, and we'll see if we can find a guest, maybe a surety person.
That would be nice. Yeah.
All right.
All right, all
That's
right.
it. Thanks, everybody.
Comedy Law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Sherelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy Law today.